Please stand, and before we start the meeting, we'll have the pledge of allegiance to the flag led by Attorney Albritton, and Ms. Charlotte will say a prayer for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please pray with me. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the privilege of living where we do, for living in America. We thank you for the opportunity to celebrate the birthday of our country this week. We pray for our troops, wherever they may be, that you will keep your hand of protection upon them, and ask that you be with our city commission and decisions they make today, that you would show them what is best for what you would have them to do and what is best for our community. For these things we ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. We'll call the St. Joe City Commission meeting to order. And Mr. Anderson, you're going to dial in Commissioner Hoffman, who is out of town and wants to attend by telephone. So we'll wait just a minute and see if you can't get him. While you're doing that, I think we can go ahead with the consent agenda, which is minutes of the regular meeting of June 18th.
Motion to adopt.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Ashbrook, second.
A second.
By Commissioner Langston. Any discussion and additions or deletions of the minutes? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 4-0. So we've got page 5. Well, I think we can go with that. This building department update, which gives you the permits issued since our last meeting, and things are moving along a little bit, I think. Just one single-family structure, unfortunately, but things are moving along, I think. Jim, do you got his number? You just can't get him?
That's why I was unable to get on.
Okay. He may have changed his mind, and we'll move on then. The next item on the agenda is Planning Board. Mr. James Anthony is here, and he would like to speak to the commission concerning a piece of property he owns and what he'd like to do with it. So, James, you'd come forward, please, sir. And print your name, James, if you would, on the clipboard there, please, and then state your name and address.
Mr. Mayor, can we get the recommendations and what the request was for and such?
Yeah, I think, Jim, would you like to kind of brief everybody on what's going on with that?
Yes, sir. Mr. James Anthony did turn in a request for a special exception to the planning board in reference to a mobile home. The request was reviewed by the board. The board did review the land development regulations. The land development regulations, as they state right now, only allow for mobile homes within a 2-block area. Mr. Anthony's house, unfortunately, that he wants to put there is not within that 2-block location. So at this point in time, it was denied by the planning board for a mobile home in that 300 block of that unit.
Any questions on that before James speaks? Okay. Go ahead, James.
Okay. To you, Mayor, to the commissioners. Okay. I'm James Anthony. My home address, 319 Avenue A, Port St. Joe. I'm here on behalf, as you said, to try to get my home put on that land. My wife and I, we've been going through this for a long time. I lost my job initially when the storm happened because I got laid off from the hospital. Numbers of people asked me why I don't put a modular home there, and I told them at the time I can't afford it because I lost my job, wasn't making the same amount of money I was making. I'm working now through the FEMA program at the county, not making as much money, so I couldn't afford it. But all I want is just some way for me and my wife to live. I mean, that's basically all I'm asking for. I've got neighbors, letters from them that don't have a problem with it. Signed it, that they don't have a problem whatsoever. Let's see some other things. Like I said, I just I just want them to know why. Here's some of the letters right here. Don't look at it.
I think what James would like to do, and really the only thing we can do, is you'd have to rezone or make a special exception for a certain area along Avenue A that would allow mobile homes to be placed there. And so, as I told James last week, that at this point in time, our hands are tied from what PDRB did. But the city makes the rules for the PDRB, and so if the city changes that criteria, then the PDRB, it wouldn't be an exception at that point in time. So I also asked him to, if he would ask his neighbors if they would object to a mobile home going next to their property. And he's submitted some, I didn't count how many, Commissioner, if you see about how many we got there. You got more?
Six, looks like 6 I got.
I got one of my neighbors, the president as well. Just, she's here and
This
says no problem.
is one.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mayor, are you suggesting that we maybe take the 300 block of Avenue A and allow mobile homes as part of the land use?
I'd say that's an option. I mean, our goal is to help folks that were hurt in the storm. And this is a classic case of that. I think maybe, well, not maybe, but if the neighbors don't object to it, then frankly, I think it would be okay. But that's just a thought I had to try to help them.
Mr. Anthony, if we do decide to go forward with an exception for, say, the 300 block, it is not going to be an instant change. You've got to go through am I right? You've got to go through 2 public hearings in order to change the
Correct me if I'm
zoning?
wrong, Mr. Attorney, but I believe you would do this by ordinance. Anytime you want to change your land development regulations, what you would do is I would suggest that work with staff to come up with the language you would like to see in a proposed ordinance, and we can bring it back for our first hearing. But you are correct.
And I know we talked on the phone, Mr. Anthony, and I told you if I were on the PDRB and you had every neighbor or every person that may possibly be affected by the change, then I would be in favor of it. But if there's anybody, during those 2 readings of the ordinance that come and say, I don't want my property values to be devalued, that's not fair for us to do to that homeowner either. So if we can get through a couple of readings, I'm in favor of rezoning just the 300 block, as long as there's no opposition from the public saying, there's no way I'm going to want this to happen.
So let me ask you a question. So if, say hypothetically, 25 people is okay with it, 1 person's against it, that makes a difference.
Because the land development regulations were put in place to protect homeowners, protect the value of their property. That's why the LDRs are written, to protect people's
So
value.
most of those houses, as we discussed, are over 50 years old. So my house.
Then they shouldn't argue that. Then they should come up here and be in
Yeah,
favor
because,
of it.
I mean, I have the newest, matter of fact, that's what a lot of people are saying, it's gonna bring the value up, because most of the houses around me are over 50 years old.
Then we shouldn't have any problem.
So, that's what I'm saying, it's, I don't understand that part, because everybody, I mean, no one's built a house in that block. You know that for God knows how long. Some of those houses are older than I am.
Mr. Mayor, I got one question. I guess before we go through all of this, is there any possible way, I know Mr. Anderson's been trying to help you regarding contacting the manufacturer and such. Is there any way you guys have figured out how to put a modular there instead of a mobile?
Yeah, if you're gonna give me another $50,000, yeah.
$50,000 what it costs to upgrade?
The cheapest one I can find, modular home, right now, is about $120,000, $130,000. My home, they knocked off the price because of the storm. My home was valued at $81,000. It costs more than that, but it's at $81,000. Like I said again, if I could afford one, sure. But I lost my job at the hospital because the storm laid $800 I was off.
So
800
roughly
people.
$40,000 then.
Yeah, roughly, the tax and everything, yeah. So they laid about $800 I was off, and I was one of them. And the job I'm working at now, I'm not making as much money. But I gotta do what I can to take care of my family. That's why.
I understand.
Can I say
Mr.
something?
Langston?
Yeah, I think that with the catastrophe that we've just been through and things that happened due to the storm, sometimes we have to go and look and say that, look, use our, I guess we can say use our, just be human for a minute and say, hey, if this was me, what would I do? I mean, I'm in this situation, so I feel that whatever it takes for us to try to get these people in their homes, get these people settled after this storm, which has been over, been months and months, we need to try to do it. I like the suggestion that Mayor Brazette had in mind, but I'm going to put out there if it comes down to a majority of the people agreeing with him to put his trailer on their property, I'm going to go with Mr. Anthony. I'm just letting you know right now, so we can take it wherever we want to take it. We can do whatever we have to do. I'm in agreement with him. He needs to be in his home. He has grandkids, he has kids, and they're just trying to move on with their lives. So, yeah, I understand and I respect ordinances and rules. I do, and I've been raised that way. But sometimes we have to look at things a little different in order to help people to move on. And that's the way I feel about the situation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board? There would have to be a motion to instruct the attorney to draft an ordinance changing the designation of the 300 block Avenue 8 to allow for mobile homes.
I'm fine with that, and I'll make the motion.
Okay?
I'll second for discussion.
And a second for discussion.
I just have a quick question
Okay.
for staff. What sort of safety, I'm worried about another storm event, about a mobile home turning into a missile or flying through someone else's house. What requirements does the LDR have to make the mobile home safer? Is there any, do you know of? Anybody? Does it have to be strapped down?
That would be a question for Mr. Creel. I'd have to defer to the building department, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I
and
can
again,
find out for you.
And it's for your safety too. I just want to make sure that we have something in our regulations that make it safe to have a mobile home in town and not be across the street in someone else's lot after the next storm event.
And I understand that part, but the way, and I've showed you guys before, the way that mine has been constructed is not like the old trailers it is.
Right.
It's going to have a steel frame and everything, and the way it's going to be strapped down, it's not just the way it used to be. But at the same time, I'm looking at hypothetically, and I spoke to the mayor about it, if you said a storm come up, what about these people that have RV trailers? Those are missiles.
Yeah, there's rules in place, state rules that his mobile home will be a zone 3, and it may have to have the exposure deed, but probably not because we've got the bay protection, and he's not directly in line of sight in the Gulf, so typically it's a 1,500 foot from the Gulf.
My second
rule.
stance is
Okay.
Commissioner Ashbrook, in reference to your question too, now, there was an architectural design ordinance that was passed by the board probably about 2 years ago. It does talk about foundations and framing those things. I think it would apply to a mobile home, but we need to ask.
that was for the facade, the same from the roof line down to the ground, correct?
It did, but it also talked about foundation plan where you had to pour footers and some different thing in there, so I'm not sure how that applies to a mobile home, but I'll find out for you.
Okay, very good. So you're going to work with Adam on all that language? Okay. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 4-0. We'll work with you, James,
All right,
to
thank you.
get that done.
Mr. Anthony.
Yep. Okey dokey, PSJRA, Commissioner Ashbrook.
Yes, Mayor, I just had one update. We did not have our meeting today. I didn't believe we'd have enough for a quorum, but I did get a request from Pastor Chester Davis from the PAC to make a draw on their downtown redevelopment account. We have put aside $20,000 for the PAC this year, and there's a request for $1,600 for Mr. John Henry to come down and meet with investors and secure their funding source. Triumph evidently had called them back and wants to speak with them again and increase the amount of money that they were asking for. So they're going to be looking at about a $7 million Triumph Ask now.
Very good.
So I don't know if we need to vote on this. It's already in our budget, but I just wanted to bring this up. I'll let y'all know here any discussion you might have.
Well, it'd be out of the DRA account, so I'm assuming we probably have to have you think we'd have to have a meeting?
So we have a quorum here of the
Yeah.
DRA.
So they want, he basically wants to make a draw
Yeah.
out off the 20 that's already in the budget for him.
Just for the travel.
Okay.
I guess just, Mayor, if you want to poll the board, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, we can make a motion. I mean, that can be a motion right here at this meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion to let Mr. John Hendry, their PAC planner, to withdraw $1,600 from the budgeted amount for them. Is there a second to that?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Langston. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed 4-0.
That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. For you, which I previously provided to Mr. Anderson provided to you as a proposed draft boat slip rental agreement. This agreement would be between anticipates being between the City of Port St. Joe and those commercial fishing vessels which would be leasing space around the bulkhead. This document is in a draft form. It's a living document, so I expect changes, so please understand that in the review. One of the issues that would need to be discussed is the price per square foot. Where are we going to be at? I left it blank in the draft. The other issue, which I think the commission should at least be aware of, is the insurance liability amounts. I use general liability is at $1 million. There's a requirement for pollution liability insurance, which is at $5 million. I would not go below $1 million threshold, but anywhere between $1 million and above, whatever the city commission feels would be appropriate and sufficient. I'm not married to any of the numbers, other than I would not advise the board going below $1 million on any of the policies.
I haven't had a chance to talk to any of the affected folks that are going to be docking down there. I don't know if what we've got here or what we just discussed is going to be attainable for them. The liability insurance issue. So I think it's something we need to discuss. Now, Mr. Anderson, you talked about an ballpark figure for the linear foot charge.
Yes, sir.
And that was,
We talked about a range between $10 and $14. I would recommend $12. I think would probably be appropriate.
from what I've heard, that's very, very reasonable. Another item I've seen in here is that we have to number these boat slips, because you're going to have your slip and it may be number 1, 2, 3, or 4. We need to do that once we, I assume, get a draft contract that we're going to live with. We got to do that, so that would be something staff's going to have to do. I'll open the floor to anyone that wants to talk about the contract before you.
I think we need to get something done fairly quickly so we're all protected. I do believe we need to reduce that environmental amount from 5 to, I'd say at least maybe 2. If y'all want to go to 1 million, I'm fine with it as well. But I would, my thoughts was 2. They're going to be bringing a fuel truck to fuel those vessels anytime they need fuel down that Clifford Sims Park, and fuel directly from that boat or that fuel truck. So we do need some coverage there. I'm fine with $1 million on the with $1 million GL.
Yes.
And I'm fine with staff recommendation on 12, and just like to hear else from the board.
All right, anybody else like to comment?
I'll go along with that. Are there any captains that are here that wish to speak on it?
The First Lady.
Okay. And I'm scrambling trying to grab everything as quickly.
Print your name, please.
Cindy Little with Fishing Express.
Yes, ma'am.
This, I know that was part of what was in there was the workman's comp, and Jim and I talked about that.
That's good.
So, but there's a minimum of 4 that has to be. I think we're the only one that's going to have any employees whatsoever in their contract labor. But then there's also the Jones Act, so just some literature, something for you to look at when you're redrafting on that. Because we're covered as far as insurance. We already have something in place with we're already, everything you're talking about. We already have it, and I'm pretty confident that Danny or Janice do as well. But, and we've already added the city to our policy as far as protecting, just trying to work together and make it all go forward.
Right.
The fuel truck, I also know another thing that we had to find out before they could even do that in the beginning was the permitting. They had to have the proper permitting, and it's as long as it's less than 10,000 gallons, if I'm not mistaken, but Camden could answer that. So all of these things are kind of already in place. Bill kind of went through and did a quick run through in his very few hours of sleep a night. So
he's seen the contract proposed?
He has,
Okay,
and the
okay.
pricing is fair. It sounds like we've already got everything. Us personally have everything else already in place and always have, so.
Sounds good. Great. Good deal. Okay, so the proposed changes for Adam is $1 million on the
Geo.
yeah, and the $2 million on the environmental.
Yeah.
And then the 12 foot.
And $12 per linear foot, and it's spelled out here where that measurement, how that measurement's done. Okay, Adam, you need a motion to that effect, or you bring it those changes back, and we'll vote on the final document.
To keep it out, just
Okay.
make it simple that way. I'll bring it back, and if it's agreeable to the commission, then we can approve it one time.
Sounds
Just
good.
in case
Okay.
you got some other changes or whatever.
Okay, all right. Anything else for you, Adam?
There's nothing else. I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, old business, Jim, you want to take off?
Yes, sir,
with that?
Mayor. The first item, the FEMA damage assessment report. As you recall, we had FEMA initially come in and gave us a list of 102 prospective homes and businesses that have substantial damage. They're coming back again next Monday. All indications are they should have us a final report for at that point. Then they will actually approve the letters to be sent out to the general public. So we're in the final stages of that.
And what date are they coming?
Monday, July the 8th at 1 o'clock.
So it's this coming Monday then?
Yes, sir. A week from yesterday.
At what time?
1 o'clock at City Hall.
1 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Okay, does anybody want to attend that meeting? If more than one does, I guess we got to advertise.
I can, Mayor, if you need to.
That'll be fine. You
That's
want to do
fine.
that? Okay, that'll be good. Anybody else would need to know, we notice it for a meeting. Okay,
The next item, we have the MLK corridor zoning change. The advertisement's being done now, so right now it's scheduled for adoption on 8/6/2019 at 12 o'clock is when we have scheduled for adoption.
Okay.
For consideration.
all right.
So we had under old business, new business. First item is commission meeting time. Mayor Brazil want to talk to us
Yeah,
tonight about.
gentlemen, I brought that up at the last meeting, that I feel like the public deserves at least one meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening. I would certainly like to hear comments from the commissioners, because I wasn't here when that change was made to go to noon meetings, so I've opened the floor for discussion on that issue.
Mayor, go ahead.
Commissioner Langston.
Well, it all came to the point where I asked the commissioners, I'm gonna explain why it was changed. Could we change the meeting during basketball season, because I coach JV basketball at high school. So I asked could we move the meetings to 12 o'clock during the basketball season. So basically, that's why the meetings were changed. I guess they were supposed to be changed back after the season, but we never got around to changing them back. I think that staff really likes the 12 o'clock meetings. I think that some of the commissioners like it. I like the 12 o'clock meetings myself, but I have to do whatever the board agrees to do. So whatever the board agrees to do, I have to make some kind of adjustments and try to move forward the best way that I can. So that's why the meetings were changed to 12. I think that it seems to me as I examine the room, it seems like the same people are here at 6 o'clock that are here at 12 o'clock. So that's my opinion about it. That's how I feel about it. So that's why the meetings were changed. If anybody had any, well, the commissioners voted on it, but it was my idea to have the meetings changed. So, and that's where we're at.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I do, Mayor. I think that from a staffing perspective, you know, we're causing our staff to go into overtime in the evenings. I'm not opposed to holding one in the evening. I would be opposed to fully going back to 6 o'clock. But we also are giving staff a whole lot of directives at every meeting that we're at, and they need time to run back and get the questions answered that we've posed to them and to start the work. If they wait till the next day, things get missed. So from that perspective, I think that we should be at noon. I also think that it was kind of a give and take. We wanted our meetings during the day, and then we decided noon would be better because at least you have lunch breaks. And I think that there's just as many people that would be upset if we had it at 6 as there would if we had it at 12. So I'm really torn either way, Mayor. I would rather not have 2 meetings at 6. I'm willing to give you 1-6 if that's what you're asking for.
Yeah, I think I pretty much feel the same way. I'm fine with a 12 and a 6. And if the board wants to go that way, that's fine, Mayor. I'm good with it.
Okay. I would certainly like to, I mean, we can go back to, if we get one at 12 and one at 6, we can always go back to both at 12 if the attendance is down at 6 or what have you. Sound like some very good reasons on all sides. So at this time, I would just entertain a motion if somebody want to make a motion to have one meeting at 12 and one meeting at 6, and you'll have to designate the first meeting of the month at one time and the second meeting of the month at the other time. So that's the way the motion needs to be made if someone would make it.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that the first meeting of every month be held in the evenings, the second meeting of every month be held at noon.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? I think city manager has one item he'd like.
Just one thing, we have advertised for the adoption, the item we had under old business, MLA corridor. That's been advertised for consideration adoption at noon. So if we could.
I'll amend my motion to be effective in September.
Just that one meeting, we need to have it in there.
Effective September.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Okay, guys. Thank you. I think the public will thank you also. Okay. Next on the agenda also, solar energy. The Duke Energy has they will work with municipalities on installing solar energy to help defer our expense for electricity. Between the wastewater plant and the water plant, we budget about $200,000 a year just to power those two plants. We've got room for solar at both places. If you go on Duke Energy's website, you'll see where they've installed solar. Madison County must have 10 or 20 acres of nothing but solar. So it must be cost effective now. It used to be very maintenance anyway, took a lot of maintenance to keep them up. And so I would just like to see us look at that route. I've asked Jim to talk to the Duke Energy folks, and maybe they'll come make a presentation for us. I can't believe that they would forego us paying them $200,000, you know, and for zero. So there's a catch in there somewhere. But we get them here, we'll find out. So I'll open that up to any discussion.
And Mayor, I looked into that about 10 years ago, and I'm sure technology's come a little since then, but it was a 10-year life on the panels, and the money that you saved over 10 years, you had to put that right back into buying a new set of panels again. So if it's gotten any better, it's a good deal.
Right, and I just threw it out there to explore the option.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mr. Mayor, could I say something? I think it's a great idea, the solar that you came up with, because we need to look at the environment. We're thinking about the environment all the time when we talk about these things. So that's an excellent idea. I'm ready to do whatever we have to do to move forward with that.
Jim, were you able to get in touch with anybody from Duke?
I did send an email to Mr. Danny Collins, trying to explore the opportunity to find out what options are there. So as soon as I hear back from him, I'll try to set something.
Okay, great. I think that would be something to look at. Okay, look like I'm next again. Police station, I talked to Chief and talked to Jim. I feel like we need to get police back downtown. I do know that we had damage. We got insurance payment for that damage. I know that we went out to bid to fix it. I also know that you guys at that time felt like maybe that wasn't a good thing to do at that time. So I'm interested to hear discussion from the commission on why we should or shouldn't have the police downtown.
I've got one good one, Mayor.
Okay.
And my thought has always been that we're understaffed. Whenever you have a police force that has only one officer on the road at night, that's a huge liability for the city. And until we can get that position filled to where we do not have only one officer on the road, I wouldn't be for spending a dime of the police money to do anything but that. I think that if we could work it into the budget this year where we add that other position, then I'd be more than happy to move them wherever you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I think from discussion I had, we may have shoehorned that in there somewhere. Is that correct?
We did have a position for this year's budget that we had held off until we found out the ad valorem tax numbers, which we're about to talk about. I did release the police chief to go ahead and fill that position, so he is in the process of filling out one position that we did have in the budget, so you would have that one new additional officer.
Yeah, I do know that there's talk about a new government building, we'll call it, or city hall for that matter, but realistically, I don't believe we'll see that for a minimum of 5 years. We could redo the police station, let them retrofit it the way they see fit, and it would work better for them. It would get them basically all our things in one area. I'd sure like us to think real hard about getting them back downtown.
What's the condition of the police station right now?
It's gutted, ready to go. From what I understand, that the low bidder had already looked at it and was ready to go, with the exception of the flooring and the air conditioning. It's pretty much, down to the studs and ready for someone to go to work.
Mayor, has the county asked us to find a place yet? Are they wanting us kind of out of the administration building?
No, they haven't, but I think in some point in time, we have to have our own home. And they may or may not, they may never, but I just think we need to have, our home needs to be with the city hall complex, in my opinion.
You mind if we hear from the chief on his thoughts or plans?
I think that'd be wonderful. If Commissioner Langston, do you have anything you want to say? You good? Okay. Matt, would you?
I will just start by saying whatever the wishes of the board is obviously what we'll do. This is the 5th year I'm in my 5th year as your police chief. And so for 4 previous budget years, I beat the drum. We need more officers. We are filling a vacant position now. 2 of you guys asked me to put another position in next year's budget. If we fill that position, then we'll have a 10-man police department, which is what I said 4 years ago, a minimum we needed to be when there were 6 of us. If we get to that point, Commissioner Ashbrook's right. There's 2 officers out there at all times. There's more ground covered. They've got their own backup. They're not relying on the county or anybody else. Personally, I'd rather see boots on the ground than a building, but that's me. You know, the only people that have to have a building are me, the secretary, and the part-time detective. Everybody else, we spent a lot of money the last 4 years giving them computers in their cars, printers in their cars. They need to be in their cars. But that's just my opinion. I mean, it's going to cost, looking at the bids, I mean, you've got to buy furniture for that building. You got to paint that building. You got to buy computers for that building. I mean, when we had this discussion before, I think the bids were $80,000. You got another 40. I mean, it's going to be a $120,000 project. If we've got the money, spend it. I think the other issue was, if we're thinking it's going to be $120,000 to put that thing back where we can move in, we only got like 46 or something from insurance, unless there's been an update on that.
We have 48 remaining from insurance, but we have not gotten FEMA settlement on that yet. So we're still working with the cost analysis with FEMA. So
those are just my thoughts. I would rather y'all find a way to, we fill this position, we're advertising starting yesterday, and we find a way to add the one that 2 of you asked me to put in next year's budget, the coming budget, and go from there. But that's my opinion. I mean, but that's always going to be my opinion. It was the day you hired me and I first looked at the budget, it is today.
Chief, you need to have a home.
I agree.
Whether they have 1 or 10,
yeah,
you need to have a home. We're homeless now,
yeah.
and so that's my thought. The police department needs to have a home, and that's why I put it on the agenda to talk about.
Yes, sir.
So that I fully understand your position, but we still need a home. We're not going to have a home for the whole city hall for a long time, but we can have a home for the police department. Nice, brand new. So if we can find some more money,
We can make it work.
we can make it work. If these guys want to make it work, right now I'm the only one that is pushing it real hard, but I feel like we just need to have you guys
Well, Mayor, I will make one comment from experience. Donut shops and desk space are the worst things to offer police officers. They'll use them both.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. My concern is of course the money piece of it, spending $120,000. I'd say, Mike, if you could check, have you sent that estimate off to the adjuster?
well, I can review the insurance adjustment and the FEMA, and hopefully as we should have the budget ready for you for the next meeting, and then we can certainly have the discussion point as we go through the budget. And maybe I'll have some numbers from FEMA and we'll know what we have in the bank.
I think what I'm saying is once we get our bids back and we go to construction on certain things, if there's overages, you know, you send them back into the insurance company and say, here's what it actually cost us minus our deductible. So,
but let me follow up with insurance on the bid that we did receive. I think it was $66,000 or $68,000.
We did, and we reached out to the contractor to see if they were still on it. We haven't heard back from them. They're reviewing their numbers because it has been about 6 months. And as soon as that number comes in, absolutely, we can send over to insurance to see if they would honor that.
One more comment. The budget item on 2 new officers is an ongoing budget item. We're fixing the police department up for our police forces is a one-time deal. Of course, you still got maintenance, I realize that, but overhead maintenance, but anyway, just a comment. So
Yes, sir.
if you guys will allow me, I'll work with Jim and the chief and see if we, and Mike, see if we can find the money to make this thing, make it work.
I just want to make sure we're using that insurance money sparingly, and then if we've got other monies to go back to, from the insurance company. I mean, I'm finding out they'll work with you. So instead of taking it out of our pocket.
Oh, yeah, I agree, 100%. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Or the city's pocket.
Yep. Any more discussion on the police station? Okay, Jim, you're next.
Yes, sir. DR 420 is that time again. We got our numbers in from Ms. Burke, provided to us the DR 420. What you're looking at for this year, if you'll flip over to pages 15 and 16. Basically, the short and skinny of it is for this year, what you're looking at based on your current millage of 3.5914, you're looking at a reduction of ad valorem tax proceeds in the amount of about $77,000. You kept your millage exactly the same. This year, you're looking to leverage about $1,032,893. So it was right in line with the reduction we thought we were going to have due to Hurricane Michael. But we also received the Triumph money. We received roughly $88,000 in Triumph money. This is before anything goes through a value adjustment board, but this will make you whole to get back to where you were at par from last year on your money. Normally what we do is we have to turn back in our DR 420 within 30 days, let the proper appraiser know where we're going to hold with our millage. You can always come down, but you're not supposed to go back up. Normally we turn back in at 1 mil higher so we can work through the budget in case some big expense comes up. This year's a little different with your money you've already received from Triumph. You've got $88,000 there, and all indications are that is supposed to fill that void for your loss in tax base for this past year. If you were to, say for instance, decide to go above 1 mil, you'll probably have to give that money back, the $88,000 back. So at this point, staff recommendation will be for this year, just hold the line on your millage due to everything we've been through with Hurricane Michael. We've directed staff to hold the line on that. So unless you absolutely do know that you want to spend that additional money and be willing to cut a check back to the Triumph board, staff recommendation will be to keep it at 3.5914 mils. That's up to the board.
Okay,
You can go.
Can that 88,000 be applied after the value adjustment board?
Yes, you've already received that check. So that check is here, so.
But we don't have to give that back before we hear the value adjustment board, because the St. Joe Company every year comes back and tries to turn more land back into agriculture.
That money, to all indicate, that money's been given to you to fill that void. Right now, if you keep it the same, you got a $77,000 gap. That gap is going to do nothing more likely but to go up based on what the value adjustment board is. So all indications are you're probably going to be right on top of that $88,000. So I think you're going to be perfectly fine as far as what you've received and what you're going to levy this year, unless you decide to go up on your millage and levy more taxes.
Yeah, and I think I remember the Triumph board said it was a good faith estimate of what it was. So
it is pretty close.
Yeah,
Very close.
It refreshed my memory. Is this a one-time deal, or is it multiple years, or?
One-shot deal. Yeah, there was one-shot deal to help fill that void for the reduction of taxes.
I'd like us to look down the road, look to next year. This looks all well and good, but as this shows next year, we're going to be in a pretty good hole. Jim, remind me how many customers we're down right now compared to prior year.
Right after the storm, we were down close to 400. The last evaluation we had on our billing cycle this past month, we're down, I think it was 257 customers.
So 250 customers times the average utility bill of $100 a month, that's $25,000 a month. That puts us $300,000 down just this year's budget. And then we throw in the 88,000 we're not going to get next year. We need to think long-term, we need to look hard at this year's budget. Also, not feel like everything's lovely, because it's really not. I don't want folks to get the feeling that we're doing well, because $300,000 out of our small budget is a pretty good whack. And so how are we going to make that up? That's what we need to start thinking about. Yes, we're probably going to get some disaster relief money, FEMA money. Department of Economic Opportunity's got a pot of money, but that's just to kind of bail us out right now. We got to figure a way to get 250 customers back, even though folks are buildings, trying to get buildings back, but that's not going to happen for a long time. So anyway, we got to tighten our belt. We really do. So but thank you for bringing this. It looks good for this year, but I just don't want to throw cold water on the parade. But we've got some issues that are going to come before us.
Do we need a motion on that today, Mayor?
We don't have to today. If you want to, if you want to think about it until the next meeting, we have 30 days to get it back. But yes, sir, we will need to make a decision by the next meeting what you're proposing that is raised.
I'm certainly with the disaster that's hit us, certainly not for raising our millage. So I'm fine with it the way it is today. But yeah, we can wait another meeting. You guys would like to do that.
It don't matter to me unless you want to get it off the agenda.
I'm nervous before seeing a preliminary budget to turn it in with no increase at all.
Right.
We may not be able to operate in the city next year.
We'll have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
You will have that.
I'd rather wait for that.
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay.
Yes, we just want to get the board up to speed where we're at with the DR 426.
Right. Okay.
Will we know our health insurance rates and stuff like that by the next meeting?
No, but I did work in a rate increase for health insurance.
I'm way out of my lane here, but that would be, I don't know, that would be my concern, is we agree not to do anything, and then what if our health insurance rates go up 20%? Are we laying employees off at that point?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to think about.
And I've seen a 20% increase, and it's not.
I'm not surprised. Any other new business, Jim? You good? Okay. Public Works, do we have anybody?
Mr. Grandin is out today, Mayor. Basically what we're working on now has been working on Clifford Sims Park, trying to get it put back together in power. Also McCord Park, and the plan is to finish up the Jones Homestead sewer by the end of July and then move back to town for stormwater between 6th and 7th Street is John's current plan.
Okay, have you guys talked about, we're in hurricane season, make sure all the drainage ditches are ready?
We have talked a little bit about the last meeting, hurricane preparedness. We did Thomas here again, so yes, sir, we are preparing for hurricane.
Okay.
What about the main stormwater ditch going from 71 all the way down through 16?
We've done some preliminary clearing. It's probably a good idea, Commissioner. We probably need to walk it and make sure the bridges, because there were a lot of debris at the bridges and some of the areas that was hanging up in there. So I'll get some guys to take a look at that.
It looks like it's going to take a lot of work right there at 71. I know there's some trees laying in it, big trees. I've noticed, but
Yeah, that area does not drain well at all.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's pretty bad right in there.
Can I say something, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
The ditch on Avenue 8, the one by, I don't know exactly where it is, it's by Miss Fennell's house. Before you, it's right after you, it's across the street from where the railroad used to be, the gate of the railroad going inside. I mean, it's terrible. I don't see how water's draining anywhere. I mean, trees are broken down in it. They're growing all over the ditch. I passed by several. I talked to John about it though, so we have some knowledge about it. But that definitely needs to be cleaned before, while we're in here. It needs to be cleaned before we even get to hurricane season. These ditches need to be cleaned out year round. You start on one side and move on down to the other side. And by the time the year is over, we'll start on this side again. It definitely needs to be something done about the drainage ditches, because It's backing water up. I mean, the water had to have somewhere to go. And if those ditches have trees in the way or some kind of trash, anything inside those ditches, they need to be cleaned out. We need to come up with a plan year-round to make sure that's done. We don't need to wait until hurricane season comes, because it's actually causing more problems than we think, because of the water that's holding up mosquitoes, things of that nature. So if we can go ahead and get that done year-round, I think it'll be better on us and on staff.
Good job.
I don't know what we can do about it right now. You know, I'm just saying in the future, that's all.
Good idea. Anything else anyone have on Public Works? Okay, let's move on to surface water plant.
Larry's actually at the plant today. We have such a small staff, but Larry is working today. He's running the plant. One thing Mr. McClellan is working on chemical costs. Chemical costs have skyrocketed the last couple of months. He is working on a bid specs for ferric to go out to bid for, so he is working on it.
I worked with Larry. I saw his preliminary budget, and we're going to hit $200,000 this year just to treat our water. So you heard me throw out the power consumption for the other two and just 200 for chemicals. And actually, I asked him to, if he would, get his top 3 chemicals that he uses, the highest priced chemicals, and go out for bid. We've been using the same person for several years, and I don't think it hurts for us to go out for bid to get a better price, because it's eating us up. And I told him I'd like to get it down to a minimum $150,000 a year for those chemical costs, whatever way we can do that. But that's
ferric
just too
sulfide
much.
is very expensive.
Yeah. And so and when I ask him also, when he does it, to put in the bid specs that the prices will be stable for 1 year, so they can't come in there in a couple of months and say the price has gone up for us, we got to raise it for you. They've got to have a solid bid, and so we can move forward with some kind of decent budget.
We'll get it out.
You want a motion to go up for bid?
Let's wait till he gets some numbers together, if you wouldn't mind. Well, I'd rather he'd be here too, Commissioner Lowry. Okay, wastewater, Mr. Kevin's back.
Yeah, we've got 2.5 foot of room on the pond, so we're in good shape. When I left for vacation, we had 3 foot. So in the last month, we've only lost 6 inches of room in the pond. There's no algae in the pond right now, so the treatment's doing well as far as mitigating algae. I owe a report to DEP, which is the end of the month, but next week is my target to get all the data together, or put the data in the system for DEP. Today I've got 2 of John's hands working, I remember Grit Kings, working on getting the Grit Kings back in operation. They've been out of service for over a month and a half probably. We've got so much sand, it's just overwhelmed. We've already stole these guys for a couple of days. We overwhelmed the pump within 5 minutes. So we're vacuuming everything out again. We're going to try that again. So that's kind of where we are as far as what we're doing. Maintenance on filters. We've got a bulk of money that we're going to have to spend soon on filters. There's 1,004 filters. We replaced about 230. And what we had in stock, and then what we bought a few months back. At $130 per filter, it's quite a sum. It's pretty labor intensive, but that's that system the way it is. What we bought last time was stainless steel filters, so we don't have that same pop every time we got to replace the filters. $12 more to replace one with stainless than nylon. So we chose to go stainless, and those filters are behaving well. They're doing fine. So that's kind of the summary of what we got going on right now, unless you guys have more questions for me.
Any questions? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Mr. Mike?
And I would comment that we have submitted requests for reimbursement from FEMA for those damaged filters to the tune of about $36,000 if memory serves, but that has not run its course yet. As we discussed earlier, we've gone through the budget at preliminary first round. We want to take one more pass through it, and we'll have that preliminary budget to you before the next meeting. You know, considering all in all, and so many variables and unknowns, we certainly feel like we're in a pretty good position, but there are still a lot of unknowns out there. We've given you a budget timeline, and certainly we have scheduled a meeting every Tuesday in August. We didn't need all of those meetings last year in the budget cycle, but they are scheduled in case we need them.
Does everybody have a copy? I think they do. We'll keep that in mind for sure. City Engineer, Mr. Clay.
Yes, sir. A couple updates. We got 2 advertisements that'll be in the paper. One for the gazebo and the picnic pavilion at Frank State Park. So that advertisement for construction will hit the paper next week, and we'll receive bids on it. Also, the Flood Griffin Lake, the bridge. We bid those bridges out, all 3 of them, and it was $250,000. We kind of scaled it back to just 1 bridge this time. Maybe we'll get a little better price on it, but that's also going to hit the paper. We should have both of those to you, numbers in front of you, first meeting in August for you to look at and consider. Last meeting, we talked a little bit about road bond. Going back through the numbers, you've got about a balance of roughly $80,000 in your road bond funds that hadn't been used or the board has voted to use it on anything. So we got pricing on guardrail from the contractor to replace the guardrail that's at near Long Avenue Baptist, Long and 18th at that ditch, and then also at the Stack House at that ditch. Those prices, and I just got this, so there's no decision you got to make today, but I mean, it's about $30,000 for the Long Avenue guardrail and $27,500 for the 8th Street at the Stack House. That's just one option for you. I mean, you certainly have money to do that. That's $58,000 or whatever those numbers are. Nothing you got to decide today. You can think about that, but just know you got about $80,000 that you need to do something with. I mean, you can pave another road with it somewhere. You don't have to do guardrail. That's a board decision, but we can wait till next meeting. Certainly, have to chew on it for a couple of weeks, but as far as I know, we've kind of gone through all the roads that over the last 3 years have been on the list. We've kind of knocked them all out. So I don't have another one that's kind of sitting around that, hey, the board has said we wanted to do this and we hadn't done it yet. So we're open to any and all suggestions on that. That was all I had for you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody?
No question.
Okay.
Can striping be done with that money, or does it have to be?
No, yeah, striping can.
Okay.
And you certainly have roads that need it.
That's what I was thinking.
How much is it again?
You got about 80,000.
It's a lot of striping.
Yeah.
Yeah. What roads you have in mind? I mean, we need to write ones that are.
It's just back here. I need to bring it to the front. I need to think about that.
Okay.
Let's think about it.
What about speed bumps? I'm really pushing for those speed bumps. I know everybody knows that's all I'm talking. So,
I can ask the county. I don't know. We've never, just because we've never done it doesn't mean you can't. We've never done it, but that doesn't mean you can't. So I'll ask the county if that's okay.
Mr. Langston, I do know that there's going to be a group that's going to present a petition to us. Maybe, I don't remember what meeting, but they've got everybody on their street signed off on it. They would like speed bump on their street. And so, you know, if everybody on the street wants speed bump, that's okay with me. They have to drive over them, but they're trying to slow folks down a little bit, and so that's optional.
Yeah, I know that, you know, people that live here, that's been here a while, they know the speed limits or whatever, but then when you get people that come in and which we have a lot of tourists, they just tend to fly up and down our residential areas, and anything that I can do to try to stop that, especially with our kids walking back and forth. We're a small community. Our kids walk on the side of the roads, you know. Avenue A is not 71. 10th Street is not 98, you know, so we need to definitely do something about that. Our officers work hard. Like you heard the chief say earlier that we're down officers, so we need to try to do something just to try to help out with the speeding, because it's going on everywhere, and I just like to see it happen in our residential areas first, with our kids walking up and down the street.
Agree. 100%. Anything else for Clay? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, code enforcement. Everybody, I'm sure, has their code list there. I'd like to make a comment while we're on code enforcement that with the permission of the board, I'd like to draft a dear citizen property owner type letter to folks asking them to take pride in their city, take pride in their own property, even though they don't live on it anymore. I don't want code enforcement running around and with a big steel hammer right now, but at some point in time, we're going to have to get a little stricter about what's going on in town. It's 8 months out right now from the storm. October, you know, I wouldn't mind giving folks a whole year to start at least mowing the grass on their property somewhat. And I do know that there are a lot of people that are living in trailers that are living in their trailers because they were renting a house that got damaged. The owner or the landlord may have taken that insurance money, put it in his pocket, and he's really not doing anything to the house that those folks need to move back into. And until we put a little pressure on, it may not happen at all. And I'll bring it back to the board, but I would like to draft a letter to folks, and it's not going to be a threatening letter. It's going to be a nice letter. Let's work together, make St. Joe nice and pretty again. But if you ride around right now, it's kind of gotten a little worse in the last month, I'd say. Any other comments?
On that same note, Mayor, Jim, you were working on, or said there was potentially a plan with some money to help tear down houses that are, we would consider condemned at this point?
From what we were told from FEMA, they said there may be some hazard mitigation money. Hazard mitigation money, to my understanding, flows through Marshall Nelson's office, the county office, up to the state. I did send an email over to Mr. Nelson last week asking if that money's available. I haven't heard anything back, but all indications are there may be some money out there to have, but I haven't got any concrete.
I need to say something. Yes, it's dealing with code enforcement, right? The vehicles, the abandoned vehicles all around town, we need to start doing something about those too.
Absolutely.
They're everywhere.
Yep. I agree.
They have to put a sticker on them, tell them they have so much time to move them, and then we'll get them and let somebody come and get them, and they pay us whatever we have to do to get them out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the main issues, Mayor, I see is people are still putting debris on the side of the road that were this household debris and construction debris and all that program's gone.
Yes, gone, exactly. And that would, part of my letter would be, I think, educational. Let folks know that we'll pick up a 4x4 section of yard debris, and that's it. They're responsible for everything else. Good point. Okay, anything else on that? Police Department, Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything, but I would say this about the vehicle problem. If the police department's trying any vehicles that are on city right-of-way, if we can articulate that they are a danger to traffic, public safety hazard, we can tow them. Our problem's been a lot of them are, like you said, they're on private property and we can't do anything about that. But if they're on city right-of-way, call us and let us go take a look at them, see if we can't find them a new home.
Good. Okay. All right. Good deal.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chief.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Charlotte, City Clerk.
No, sir, I don't have anything listed for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Citizens to be heard. Who would like to come forward?
Okay, Chester Davis, coming in the cap of the pack. First of all, I want to thank you commissioners for setting up for John to come down. This is a very important position for us, especially when folks are offering for the help in their community, and it has to come to the city. And we want to make sure that our city, get the best of that also. The other part was that we have some situations coming, and it's already come down, especially with our park and our recreation facility on Northport St. Joe side. In light of not only the storm, but the fact that that building out there needs to start making some funds. And I know that right now we're not even listed on the city website as a park. It's not listed. Peters Park is not listed. I don't know what the resolution was at the time, but it's not listed as a park, city park. And the other issues come based upon the fact that we had Ms. Thompson. She had a meeting with the county commissioner and Eric the other day about some of the issues that we're having out there with the gym. And she's part of the coalition to improve Northport St. Joe. And we want to fix it to the point where that gym can be used to make some money also. But the upkeep of it has to be done somewhere in the maintenance area, so that when we do have events out there, priority number one, women restroom. It has one stall in there for women. In light of that incident that just happened the other day, if we would have had an event in there where they can come in, there's only one bathroom in there for the ladies. One sit-down place. So those are the things that need to be addressed. The windows issues that are broken out. The air conditions are working, but they're insufficient. So if we're looking at all the things that need to be done out there, how can we bring that building up, not for the next storm, but for right now? There's some historical grants out there, but they haven't been granted to us yet. So somehow we need to start putting a fix on those things so that we can use that building as a public place to have people go, and the city can, have some revenue coming in behind it. One of the thoughts that I had for it, they got some concerts that we can put on. We can put some movies out there, whatever, and make it profitable. But right now, if people come in, the air conditioning is running, but it's not sufficient. The lady want to use the restroom, she has to leave out of the building, go somewhere to find a restroom. We got some cracked windows in there, and like I said, we can't hold the city accountable for those cracked windows. Sometimes our children just out there misbehaving. But the idea that we need to come up with a plan to fix that, not at the next hurricane, but right now. So she's part of that coalition. She's over the disaster relief fund. She's reaching out to the county to get some assistance. She's reached to Commissioner Quinn also, and they are online with her. But we need to find a way to get this moving so we don't have to wait on a disaster to happen in order to have those things, on hand. Especially when it comes down to women need to use in the restroom. Okay? If we can address that and help us out, because she's doing a wonderful job in trying to make sure that area is recognized also. You got people popping up with that last incident. Where are they going to go? If we want them to get out the park, out of the view of the children, they need to go inside the building. But if they go inside of the building, there's not adequate accommodation for them, even if they go inside. So those are some issues we definitely need to address. And I pray that we do that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Amy Rogers, want to recap on some of the things that we discussed at the last meeting. I did go around on Martin Luther King and talk with several residents again about rezoning their property from residential to commercial. They indicated that the letters that they received from the city, there are no response, and according to the way they interpreted the letter, the no response means they did not want to, they didn't want to respond to say yes. So I want to make that very clear, that they no response. They did not respond because the residents, the one that got residential housing, a few people have commercial, got a building, nothing there, but the residents that they said they didn't respond because the way they interpreted the letter, it said if you want to rezone it, and they did not. So I want to make that rather clear. And as the whole time they've been involved with this since 2006, the residents has always said no. And they stand on that through federal court when this group, under another name, taking it to the federal court. They did not want to rezone to commercial. They wanted to keep it as the same. I want to commend the individual, the group that want to change the commercial property with their businesses on it, and that's very well. But the residents have nowhere else to stay but the residents that they're living in and what their family have left them. They do not want to change, and they're taking every step. So it's not like there's been, you know, no response, meaning that they are in full cooperation with the group. There no response mean no, they do not want it to change. And they have tried to voice their opinion at several PAC group, but again, they have just been pushed aside, overlooked, their request just falling on deaf ears and ignored. So they want to make sure. So we will take it to writing next.
I would encourage them to attend PAC meetings and as well as these meetings. It would be good if they could.
They have attended, that's what I'm saying. They attended the PAC meeting on each time.
Okay.
But each time they have been shut down, ignored, and their requests fallen on deaf ears. And so I'm just bringing it to your attention. We will be here at your next meeting, and then we'll hear from them, because they just want to fix their houses up and so that they can be safe and living there. The other item that I wanted to recap on, what is the status of the Avenue C? Last month we said we were going to look into the matter with the state for Highway 98 turning to Avenue C?
Yeah, there has to be accident reports there that lack of no turn lane is caused an accident, or we'll have to spend $8,000 to have a study, and then there's no guarantee we will have a turn lane. So that's kind of where that is. Probably basically at a standstill. I'm not sure. Chief can give us some comments on that if he wants, but I don't. It's going to be a tough sell.
Mr. Langston had addressed that issue.
Yes, I addressed it, and I talked to Jim about it, and like that $8,000 for just a traffic study that we will have to pay. That's what we're on a standstill about, but I'm still going to be pushing for it. So hopefully eventually we can get it changed.
Okay.
Because I know a traffic study, we did a traffic study before they built gateway houses, and I think Ms. Roy, we was talking about the traffic as they was getting ready to build the gateway houses, and on Avenue, some of the citizens was concerned from Avenue A and turning into Gateway, and I think she suggested something to that fact about a traffic study. So a traffic study has been done, and I don't think the expense was a problem when they got ready to build Gateway. It was talking about how crowded or congested the traffic, and I said myself, they're gonna have a lot of, yes sir, on Avenue C, and that's what I want to make sure that we need to look into.
Sure, we'll do what we can to try to make that happen.
Okay.
All right.
And my last item is the concession stand at Peters Park. We discussed that in the past, you know, the outside. There's restrooms there, and there was a concession stand, and we were supposed to use some money to get that taken care of. I think at that time, Mr. over the PSJ development, I was saying that money that they had left, and to fix the tennis court fence out there. What is the status of looking at some of that money to get that fixed? Because the tennis court is rusty, need to be fixed, but those two concession stands.
So that falls into all of our properties that were damaged by the hurricane. We need to come back to you with a list of the damage and all the properties that need to be repaired throughout the city, and lay out for you what funds we have from insurance and FEMA, so that we can start looking at prioritizing repair of our facilities in that regard.
Right. But we will apply for the money to FEMA.
Absolutely. The tennis court was included, and we have gotten insurance money and FEMA money for those
and just include the concession stand.
Some of those items have been addressed. I know Commissioner Langston and I've been working on that.
Yeah, we've been working on the
He's been
concession
checking
stand.
that.
Yeah.
I've been working on that.
So I think that may be.
It may be fixed
We put a
already,
new door
because
on
we
it.
did do a lot of work because we started those softball games out there.
Yes.
And we did do a lot of work in there, so, it may be fixed, right?
What about the bathrooms, the outside, the men's and women's bathrooms,
Yeah,
the
they're
concession
they're
stand?
fixed. They're ready to go.
Thank you, Ms. Agnew.
Did I say something else?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
And also the bathroom that was connected to the Wig Center, it was destroyed, the door was destroyed. We also got that one fixed too.
Next, we got someone else right now, Chester. Come on up, Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Robert Branch, Marvin Avenue. I appreciate y'all bringing up the meeting time again. Mr. Possess, I appreciate you bringing that putting on the agenda. Mr. Lanks, I appreciate you recognizing why it was changed. I guess we meet 50-50. I don't have a problem with that, as long as everybody's on the same page. I do have one question though. Mr. Ashbrook, it might have been you. The statement was made that the same people would probably be here now versus 6 o'clock.
I said
that, and that might be the case. Let's look at that the next 6 o'clock meeting, and let's do a little survey and see. And I agree to disagree, but that's okay. That's why I'm up here. Let's look at that. I appreciate y'all meeting halfway. The stormwater was brought up. Looks like y'all trying to do better with that. That means a lot to a lot of the issues that's going on in this great community. It looks like y'all followed up on that. That's all I have. I appreciate y'all's time.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Come on up.
Christy McElroy, Woodward Avenue.
Sign in too,
Yes,
please.
I will. I'll do that at the end, so I don't waste time. I find it, Mayor Bezet, so refreshing that you're talking about finances of the city. All these meetings that I've attended, whenever Mike does the budget, I've asked him for information. We need to be grounded in what the reality is now and in the future. I also appreciate, the fact that you've talked about the ditches. That ditch system doesn't just go from 8th Street or 6th Street, to 16. It goes all the way down throughout the city. And I've taken the opportunity on several occasions to travel down that ditch system and see exactly what's going on. It's bad. It needs to be cleaned out. It needs to be cleaned out on the north side. And this is hurricane season. Hurricane season began on June 1st. We need these culverts and these ditches cleaned out. The one in front of my home, it's got dirt halfway up it. I can't do that myself. I would, but I can't. And that's the responsibility of the city to make sure that we're safe. I have a question because this kind of falls into water. I asked the city to give me some information. I know that Jeremy Novak has complained about what happened to his building during the storm. And he had asked, the insurance company and the city to come back and give him money. And his quote was, with building damage and interruption to his business, $564,452.03. So I found this kind of interesting. And then, of course, I've got your insurance policy. And one of the things it talks about is water. And the city being accountable to, if you're not taking care of water flow, you know, there could be issues if people are damaged. And this also brings me to the bike path that was put in a number of years ago, and I use practically every day that I'm here. But that bike path does not have good drainage for the neighbors that are lower than that bike path. And that was an error by the engineering firm. And that's something that needs to be rectified. So I would ask, because Mayor, you seem very proactive, and you do want the city to be pretty and restored. But I go back to the fact that if we continue to have damage, you can't continue to try to fix over and over again. It's Groundhog Day. So these things to just be proactive and preventative so that, again, everybody's safe and they can get back to their lives and things looking pretty. The other thing that I do want to ask about is the NERDA grant. I understand that, you know, you're talking about having a public meeting surrounding that grant, and I'm just wondering what the plan is.
I would personally, yeah, I'd love to have a public meeting because for me, I haven't made up my mind about how I would like to see it spent. I haven't talked to our engineer since I've been back about that. Yeah, I'd like to hear from the community about, you know, how would you like to see us spend that money? I think it's a good idea.
I think there's a committee that is pulled together trying to do some things to improve our bay. And these funds are all about restoring our waters.
That's correct.
And so I don't see how piping restores our waters. You know, I was out on my bike and noticed that, no offense to the city, they were spraying chemicals right next to those waters, to the ditch system. How on earth does that improve the quality of the bay? And so I do and would ask, Mayor, since you are very transparent and you seem to care about what's going on, I would ask that you have public meetings concerning the NERDA grant.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you. And Commissioner Langston, you were right on about being proactive about making sure these ditches are maintained all year round and not just at hurricane season. So appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
And Mayor, that NERDA grant was written. The first item on the list was to get a master drainage plan for the city that was built into that grant.
Good.
So we'll have a master plan to work
Great.
from.
I like that. Okay, any other, yes ma'am, come right up.
One question, I wanted to ask about the status of the power for out there. I mean, we're surviving, but power would be nice.
We are still working through Duke Energy. Apparently they have got it energized up to the park, but there's some issues about the wiring getting to the lift station there, at the restroom and to get into that pad. So yes, ma'am, we're still working through it, but there's some issues.
Okay, so then once that comes up, then they would have the restrooms as well. Okay, thank you.
Chester, you had another comment I think you want to make.
I can't stand by and not reply. We have had public meetings for 3 years. Mayor, you've been there. Commissioner Ash, you've been there. Laura, you've been there. Langston, you've been there. Even our city commissioner, you've been there. The oppositions that we're having now that the rezoning has come to its fruition is now being opposed by who? There's no name being put out there. There's no people, you know, coming to the meetings that's saying, and even the person that makes that statement, they've never been to a meeting to understand what the process is that we've been trying to do. One of the accusation made against us that we're trying to displace folks. And then the whole deal is to bring our community to a better standard. not to put anybody out or put anybody out of place. If you got a house on Martin Luther King and you don't want it touched, it don't have to be touched. So those are accusations that are not being made. And you said it right, Mayor. Come to the meeting. Come to the city council meeting. Come to the PAC meeting. Every citizen that lives on North Port St. Joe, when we started that, we got the email address, we got the address, and we sent information out to everybody. We made sure that all of those meetings were accountable, and we made sure the information got out. There was nothing done to the point where we were trying to go behind anybody back. So we have asked those people to come to the meeting, and the consent was that, guess what? We want to improve. They said yes. Now, who are those people? The ones who come to the meeting. That's the only thing we can rely on. Even when you have your city council meeting, you depend upon what folks to show up for approval or disapproval of things. If they don't show up, then the city council does what's best. And that's what we've done in North Port St. Joe. We're doing the best we can to revitalize our community, and all that naysay stuff is need to go to the wind. Come to the meeting and find out. And if it's something that we're doing wrong, then stand up and say so.
Well, Chester, what I'd like to ask you to do, though, is continue to reach out to those people that you're talking about that may be against what you're trying to do. Continue to reach out with them, try to work with them, and make sure they're educated and everything. And maybe you may have to go knock on the door instead of saying you didn't come to the meeting. So
well, we don't make that accusation. You don't come to the meeting. Right. What we do, we put the information out there, and we pray that that information is filtered correctly. But just to say that the people are not satisfied, and you don't have no names for those people or who they are, help me out here.
Anyway, work with them if you will. Mr. Bonnie?
A lot of ground has been covered today, and I'd like to commend a lot of talks. Eric, you did a great job on the direction of the drains. But years ago, I'm not going to call his name, a county commissioner saw me digging out a ditch, a cover, drain cover. And it made the water aerate. Now, if every man can play basketball on North Port St. Joe and done a lot of good, great things, athletic, body-wise, if they volunteer and clean out a drain in front of Zion South Church, the next street over, and Ballard Street, it'll aerate, it'll drain out. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Commissioner Ashbrook, you're first.
The first, Mayor.
Yeah.
All right. And I actually don't have anything further today, Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Lowry.
The only thing I've got, temperature's good in here today compared to
a little better.
Few weeks ago, but yeah, try to figure something out if you haven't already.
We reached out to our AC guy. He is working on some mini splits to go in here. We also have a couple of portables in the back. We can get one that we can turn on.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Langston.
Yes, I just like to say we were talking about hurricane preparedness. I want to let the commissioner know and everybody know that we formed a committee, which will help try to get some of the citizens that can't. That don't have the resources to evacuate during a hurricane. Myself and there's a couple more people, Commissioner Quinn's on the board, where we can get these people out of here to safety. We're implementing some type of CPR classes, some classes to learn how to mobilize the elderly people or people that's not able to move or paralyzed or paralytic, whatever. And I'd like to tell Marquita, thank you. I want to do it in the public. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing on this committee. I really appreciate you. And with this committee, if we can continue, what we're trying to do is not just for the north side, it's for the entire city. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get it where some people can just get out when they have to and don't have to rely on, well, we'll help them. They can rely on us. I think it's a good thing. I would like to talk to a few commissioners about it, get them on board. With that said, we just keep moving forward. Also, Jimmy, we can go ahead and get MLK cleaned up before, I think, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow. If we can get that cleaned up a little bit, the flower beds, I appreciate it. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and hope you enjoy your 4th of July.
The only thing I have is for everyone to be safe and enjoy Independence Day. There's a lot going on. Street dance tomorrow on MLK. There's a brand new business opening up tomorrow on MLK from 1 to 3. And then 4th of July fireworks here, 10 o'clock, I think. So everybody enjoy, be safe. Thank you for coming.
Motion to adjourn.